Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are joined once again by Haley Carbajal, the beautiful, the amazing, the intuitive, she has so many titles, but we're excited to have her back here to talk more today about the amazing work she does. And she's here to help you. Yes, I'm meaning you. You're listening, and it's all about you. 5 steps to alignment is what she does. Tell us a little bit about what you do, Haley.
I am a Starseed mentor and coach. And so I help people overcome fear, stagnation, and lack of direction in their life so that they can vibrationally align to their higher calling or their soul's purpose.
And how do we find you?
You can always find me at 5stepstoalignment.com, FIVE. And I'm also very active on Instagram. And again, that is also 5 Steps to Alignment.
Perfect. Thank you so much. What did you have in mind for us today?
Well, I wanted to talk about the emotional home and how it pertains to the changes that we experience in our life, but not in the way that it's usually depicted. So, for those who don't know what an emotional home is, various personal development experts and psychologists have all identified that we all have like 5 to 10 emotional places, emotional states of being that we go to, aka the emotional home. So sometimes that's frustration, sometimes that's happiness, sometimes that's bliss, sometimes that's anger, right? So if you kind of just take a small little inventory of the last 48 hours and the emotions that you experience, there is a very, very, very high chance that those are the emotions that you go through on a regular basis for the last few decades or so. And
Uh-huh.
so Dr. Joe Dispenza has this quote that I absolutely love, and it's your personality creates your personal reality. And
Mm-hmm.
he talks a little bit about the emotional home. Now, I'm just going to start off from the basis that everybody understands now what the emotional home is. So we always find ways to go to that emotional home, whether that be, I know one of my
Mm-hmm.
emotional homes was scarcity for a while. We have an emotional home of fear. We have an emotional home of, we
Yeah.
could have emotional home of, anger, things like that. Scarcity actually still kind of pops up here and there for me. It's very normal for everybody to experience that. So when we talk about reprogramming, not only is it that we're reprogramming our thoughts, but we're also reprogramming and reconditioning an emotional home as well, because you can't think beyond what you feel. And so if you're in a stress induced unresourceful state, you cannot perceive, create, or think of anything beyond anger, answer to come.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit there, Haley. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Miss Haley Carvajal, are you with us? 5stepstoalignment.com. Unfortunately, we have some technical issues. Um, Haley, are you with us? Okay, what we'll do is take a quick break. We'll be right back with more. Don't go anywhere.
Are you ready to start your journey healing holistically with magic? Then let us empower you. Hi, my name is Angelica Ginlat, founder and creator of Indigo Enchantments Metaphysical Shop in Sutton, Mass. We specialize in powerful healing oils, spell jars, candles, and kits, lots of healing crystals, and so much more. Find us on indigoenchantments.com, Facebook, and new to Instagram. Come awaken the power within.
Welcome back to the show. Haley, are you with us?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Beautiful. I hear you now perfectly. I'm so sorry. Now I forgot where we left off. Would you mind
That's
just
okay.
repeating a little bit what you said?
Yeah, that's totally fine. So the emotional home, and when we're reprogramming our thoughts, we're also reconditioning a new emotional home. And that is because, again, we can't think beyond what we feel. So if we're in a stress induced state, all we can perceive, think of, or create at that time is stress induced like thoughts or results or resolutions, right? So that's why we don't want to make decisions when we're in a state of stress or anxiousness, or we don't even really want to believe our thoughts when we're stressed, when we're in fear, when we're in scarcity, because we're only thinking at that level of consciousness or at that level of emotional intelligence, emotional discernment, emotional state of being. So I want to talk about how this carries through when we actually receive the changes that we want in our life. Let's just use a dream home, for example, right? Let's say that you stayed committed, you did it
Mm-hmm.
every day, you did the reprogramming, you did the all of the inner work, right? But you did not focus on that emotional home, defaulting to scarcity or defaulting to anger, right? So when we actually receive the thing that we want, for anybody, it could be a house, it could be a car. For now, we're doing or it could be a relationship too. Relationships are a great one for this. Um, when we actually get what we want, this is why it loses its thrill. This is why the new home loses its excitement after a few months. This is why the new car is here and gone. This is why we lose the thrill and the excitement in our relationship, because we default unconsciously to that emotional home. So it's not that anything's wrong with the house. It's not that anything is wrong with the car. Nothing's wrong with the relationship. And honestly, nothing is wrong with you either. It's just that it is a natural state of being to default to that stress, that fear, that scarcity, or that anger, right? So when you can just acknowledge that, then you can say, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not gonna, it's not the car's fault. It's not the house's fault. It's not the, boyfriend or girlfriend's fault. It just is what it is. So I want to talk about conditioning a new emotional home and how to do that authentically, not manufactured, not say a dozen affirmations and then miraculously you feel better when actually you don't. We want to do everything organically, naturally, authentically, right? So in conditioning a new emotional home, first we want to, you know, identify what is the emotional home I want to release, let go of. Let's just say scarcity, right? And what is the emotional home that I want to bring in instead? The emotional state of abundance, feeling abundant, abundant in obviously money, but abundant in time, abundant in resources, abundant in joy, abundant in health and mobility and flexibility, like all of that. It's all encompassing, right? So anytime throughout the day that the scarcity comes up, we just acknowledge it, accept it for what it is, and let it pass. Now, when we have true, authentic moments of abundance, that is the time to anchor them in. We don't let those pass by, right? So, a great example would be like, I don't know if they have Safeways out where you are, but we have grocery store called Safeway here. And if you purchase a certain amount, you get points, and those points goes towards money off of gas, right? And so let's say that you get $1 off a gallon because of how much you've gone grocery shopping. If you don't take the time to acknowledge that abundance that came in, then you're still having that emotional home of scarcity because that's all you'll perceive, right? Now, let's just say we're replacing anger with bliss, right? Two polar opposites, right? So you haven't acknowledged that anger is one of your emotional homes, but you want to intentfully bring in more bliss. So when you have a moment of true bliss in your life, and I understand that when you're reprogramming this or conditioning this, it can feel like it's a little far and few between, which is why it's so important to grab them while you can. And when those natural states of bliss come up, let's say that you had a really great conversation with a friend. Let's say it's after that first sip of coffee. Let's say it's after you just you just settled into bed and your bed is like your favorite place, right? those real authentic moments of bliss is when you anchor that in and you soak it up for all that it's worth. You take it in and you take a moment, however it feels most natural to you. I always like to close my eyes and put my hands on my heart and just anchor in that state of being of bliss, bliss, bliss. Thank you so much for this bliss, and have gratitude for the bliss and that it came into your life. And you'll start to realize, you'll start to perceive not only that your reticular activating system is perceiving and witnessing more reasons why you are blissful or to be blissful in your life, but then that is starting to become the new norm. And then you will unconsciously seek out that state of bliss rather than so much the anger. Right? It does get to a point where the paradigm does shift, but you got to put in the effort and the intention to actually make it shift. Another great way to do that is through music. So music is actually hypnotizing us. I don't think that this is like some hocus pocus thing. Really, if you think about it, the words are in the form of a melody, and words are programming us, right? So like whether it be a book that you're reading, something that you're listening to, whatever it is, whatever you're consuming, you're being programmed to believe in something anyway, right? So using music strategically, because it still is a very great resource, dispose of all of the things that are not congruent. Let's say go to the bliss and anger example. Stop listening to music that provokes anger, that provokes angry thoughts, or that brings back connections to angry times, and start listening to music that puts you in a state of bliss. Music that you know that you always feel good after you listen to it. Maybe you go back to one of the highlights of your life and that music, that song takes you there, right? So using and leveraging not only the lyrics in music to condition you to think and feel and believe a certain way in the way that you want to think, feel, and perceive and believe, but also using music as an amplifier to get you into that peak state. So the peak state is your more natural way of being. Does all of that make sense?
Absolutely is. And I apologize. I'm having a coughing fit. So I'm here, but I have you muted because I keep coughing. I'm going to take some water.
No problem, no problem. It happens to all of us. Um, but things won't change in your really things won't change in your life if the emotional homes that you live and exist in don't change, because emotions are extremely, extremely powerful. So I think we've all heard this, that our heart is 5,000 times more powerful electromagnetically than our brain. So our thoughts are less powerful than the things that we feel in our heart. And so when you feel something, that electromagnetic pulse sends out information to the universe, and then the universe brings back that feedback of what you're actually broadcasting. So that's why when you're in anger and resentment, it's like you run into the least appealing person at the grocery store, or you do find that your boss is a little bit more angry at you that day, or you and your spouse are just kind of butting heads, or you don't know how to get through to your kids, right? That's because the emotion that you're experiencing automatically, unconsciously, and always is communicating information to the universe, and therefore it's sending it back. Now, when you focus on the emotional home like bliss, or one that you specifically want, maybe it's peace, maybe it is abundance, maybe it is certainty, maybe it is self-confidence, and you start to grab those little nuggets of those emotions in your life and milk them for all that they're worth, conditioning it into your physical body through, dance, or through just, I mean, even like a snap, like when you feel good or you bob your head or whatever it is, there's a physiological response to that state of being. So being able to tap on that on demand or on command is also very good too. But when you start bringing that in, and that is then you're more often feeling that state of bliss rather than feeling that anger, that's when the paradigm shifts. And then it feels a little bit more unnatural to be angry, and it feels more natural to be blissful. I really think, Jill, that peace, inner peace, is something that is earned. I think it's something that is earned because not everybody is willing to walk the path to get there. They're not, they succumb to their automatic programs or their automatic emotional home more easily, more effortlessly than they do trying to transition into that more blissful, grateful peak state, because again, we gravitate towards what we're most familiar with and all of those things. That's a whole different conversation. But if they get lost in the, well, first of all, they have an expectation that they should overcome decades of programming within a few days. You got to give yourself more time. Really, you need more than a few weeks, even. So you got to give yourself that grace. Also, they're not graceful enough with themselves. They don't support themselves through the process. They blame themselves through the process, right? So it's like, oh, why did I go into anger today? Something's wrong with me. Or I went into anger. This stuff's not working. This is all hocus pocus BS. No, like you just have to persevere through those moments with full acceptance and compassion, really. And then I truly believe that it is impossible to fail at something if you never give up. You will have to adapt. You will have to get creative. You will have to recover. You will have to reflect and strategize. But if you never give up, then what you want has no choice but to show up at your doorstep. So I guess then where this has led to is that what is more important to you? Is it more important to you to have that blissful state of being, which actually benefits all of the other people in your life, including also your health? Or is it more important for you to stay in your victim, self-loathing mentality that is going to get you nowhere?
Well, that victim mentality, we hear that, we see that a lot of times, don't we? And sometimes a little all too often. How do you suggest we work with, people? I have a lot of friends that kind of have that about them. And how do you get them out of that feeling of, oh, woe is me, oh, I can't do this, I can't, right? And you want to, but how do you change that mindset in a sense?
First of all, it has to be voluntary because the victim
Yes.
mentality serves us in a way where if we don't have to take full responsibility for our part in what we're creating, then we can always blame something else, right? And that's feels less invasive, so to say. But I will tell you that if the victim mentality is never released or intentionally released, then you will never be able to access the true power that you see other people who are winning, who are happy, have. And so it does have to ultimately begin with the choice to decide, that you're going to take full extreme ownership. And actually, in that full extreme ownership lies your freedom. It lies your freedom, because if you're a victim to something, it controls you. But if you are somebody who's empowered by the challenges or chooses to be empowered by the challenges, then you have full and total control, relatively speaking, right? There's nuance to that, obviously. Not everything is so black and white. Everything has a gray area. But the victim mentality, I understand that it's self-soothing because sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow that something that you did or you chose caused what's happening, or it's hard to admit that you're participating in your own suffering, but the suffering will not stop until you actually take ownership of your participation in that you are feeding this monster of suffering that is energetically siphoning off of you. And nothing will change until you take full ownership of your actions, of your choices, of your thoughts, of your behaviors, of the way that you treat yourself and the way that you treat other people.
Thank you for that. All right. And we still have 6 more minutes, Haley, to talk about this and to talk more about 5 steps to alignment and, how, I love this emotion, how this could, could you share an example of someone who went through this in a sense and how you help them in the process of helping someone?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my client, Judy. So she came to me very reserved, very what's the right word? She was very conscientious of the way that others perceived her, and she would morph herself to fit into the images of other people. And so when we worked on
Mm-hmm.
her self-confidence by trusting more in herself, trusting more in her intuition, and removing all of those, not only inner child beliefs that were making her feel like she needed to fit in a box, but also when we had more validation when there was felt like there was more validation in the creative aspects of her, and that those more creative aspects of her brought more happiness, then it started to devalue being this, cookie cutter perfect, I need to morph myself into other people's images that they have of me in their own mind. And so after that, now she refers to herself as bodacious. She is very bodacious, and she's more alive than she's ever been. I like to take I don't have one with me now to necessarily pull up appropriately, but I love to take before and after pictures with my clients. They just take a selfie before and a selfie after, and you can tell the glowing, the just the
Yep.
illumination from her eyes after
Mm-hmm.
her time working with me. And she's speaking out about things that she was always afraid about speaking.
Mm-hmm.
She loves nature. She loves, birds and dogs and all of these things. And she always felt like she had to hide that part of herself for
Yep.
whatever reason.
Ah,
And now she's speaking openly with friends about it. And, and also now she's going through, because we're still working together. Um, because of all the shifting she's done internally in her life, she's starting to lose some of those old people that kept her in a specific image. And so now we're working through making sure that we are keeping her as a whole person and okay with letting people go that are no longer in alignment with where she's going or this new
mm-hmm.
vibration and consciousness that she's in, and bringing it in, um, and bring calling forth her new people, the people that are in alignment with where she is now and where she's going.
Got it. Well, thank you. And Haley, you've been helping people like this for how many years? I mean, it's kind of like a God-given gift, right? You've always innately been able to help. And just a little bit about your background and what makes you qualified and, why people are raving about you and all the testimonials about how you've helped people through so much.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been doing this for the last 10 years. So literally, I know I'm still relatively young, but I've been doing this pretty much my whole adult life. And really, I've been immersed in it since I was
Yep.
probably about 15 or 16. And this has been my life's work. I started off with more of the physical healing of the body, which was massage
Mm-hmm.
therapy, and then upgraded to things like Reiki healing and Theta DNA healing. And then it just, personal development met up with energy healing. And then, being able to channel and access multidimensional information came in. And then with all of the hundreds of clients that I've worked with, it's just kind of come into this handcrafted person that you see here. But I've been doing this my entire adult life and have been exposed to it for the last probably about 15 years.
Got it. Oh, thank you for that. And to now, leave us off today and to inspire many to call you, to work with you. What else did you want to add?
Hmm. If you're still listening, that's not a coincidence. And actually, if you have come across this specific podcast, it is because the universe is trying to communicate to you that the emotional home is what is keeping you out
Yep.
of alignment. The emotional home is the thing that is quote unquote holding you back. So reach out to me. I have a $7 offering monthly subscription where you can get spiritual mentorship and coaching so that you can get that refinement that you need in order for you to truly have the life that you desire.
Got it. Well, thank you so much. And if we want to reach out, initial consultation, really just as simple as that, 5stepstoalignment.com, or how else can they reach you?
At 5stepstoalignment.com is great. I'm also very active on Instagram at 5steps2alignment.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Always a pleasure having you here. And what else are you doing for the rest of the day? How was your Memorial Day weekend?
It was
What'd you
great.
do? Anything with the family? Any fun?
Yeah, we stayed home. I laid out the kids. My son caught his first lizard the other day, so that was really fun for him. And
Aw.
just stayed home and we were quiet people, even though I do extroverted things, I'm actually very introverted. And I have one more podcast interview coming up, and then I actually have a friend coming to stay with me for a week. So
Exciting. All right,
very
good. Well, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure. 5stepstoalignment.com, and we'll talk next week. Thank
yeah,
you. What do you
bye.
say? Namaste. What is it?
I don't say that, but it is namaste.
Okay, I'm like most people, like, on the spiritual side, they always say that. That's why I learned. I learned from spiritual people like you. Thank you so much, Haley. Have a fantastic day, and everyone as well. We'll be right back with more.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.